On the final day of the World Sweets Championship, all eyes were on one contestant whose dreams surpassed merely winning a trophy. He aimed to create humanity's most breathtaking confection. After years of devoted craftsmanship, he finally revealed his masterpiece, a magnificent, lifelike sugar phoenix. Victory seemed assured. Suddenly, tragedy struck when the massive sculpture collapsed, crushing him to death. As regret filled his fading thoughts, a divine presence intervened, granting him a second chance at life to let his talents bloom once more. He was reincarnated in a remote, once barren land as a boy named Pastry. Over the past 20 years, his father, Casserole, had transformed this sandy wasteland into fertile soil, establishing 3 thriving villages of about 40 people each. When Pastry turned 9, Casserole rigorously trained him in swordsmanship to mold him into a warrior who could protect their territory. However, Pastry cared only for making sweets, retaining his past life's passion. Sadly, their land couldn't grow sugar, seemingly turning his confectionery dreams to dust. While wrestling with this dilemma, a loyal servant, Sheet, arrived with an update. Thanks to practical agricultural improvements suggested by Pastry, their bean harvest was abundant despite a looming kingdom-wide famine. Unfortunately, this relief was short-lived, as Sheet quickly delivered grim news next. 50 surviving outlaws from a nearby battle were marching toward their lands. With only 30 able-bodied men available, Pastry knew that engaging in direct combat meant absolute ruin. Casserole considered requesting military aid from their neighbor, Brioche, but Sheet warned of the severe political backlash. Defeating bandits that the neighboring ruler had previously failed to eliminate would undermine their authority, and Sheet suspected their neighbor actually wanted their territory destroyed in order to seize the remains. Determined to protect his confectionery dreams, Pastry vowed to fight no matter the cost. Impressed by his resolve, Sheet suggested a daring plan, making Pastry their secret weapon by having him undergo the rite of consecration to awaken superhuman magical powers. That night, Casserole explained this dangerous necessity to his wife, Agnes. She initially refused to endanger her young son, but relented after Casserole assured her of the boy's extraordinary capabilities. Believing the solemn occasion demanded extreme distinction, Agnes and her daughter, Josephine, eagerly dressed the boy in lavish, feminine clothes, treating him like a dress-up doll. Exhausted by the heavy outfits on departure day, Pastry received gentle encouragement from Agnes. His friends, Marcarello and Limonito, came to see him off. When Marcarello joked about wanting similarly fancy clothes, Limonito laughed and said they would never suit him. After leaving Sheet in charge of the territory, Casserole used teleportation magic to instantly transport himself and Pastry to the royal capital, leaving the two friends staring in absolute disbelief. During the journey, Agnes and Josephine warmly teased Pastry about his feminine attire, filling the trip with laughter. Upon arriving in the capital, Pastry was instantly overwhelmed by the rich aromas of spices, food, and especially sweets, making him acutely aware of his homeland's lack of ingredients. Noticing his fascination, Casserole promised to buy him a treat after the ceremony. Pastry eventually settled on apples, sparking an idea to plant apple trees back home. Recognizing his son's ambition to enrich their territory, Casserole felt a deep sense of pride, though Pastry's true goal remained creating a kingdom overflowing with sugar and chocolate. They arrived at the church to meet a renowned priest whom Casserole knew from when Josephine underwent her own ceremony years prior. The priest was shocked that someone as young as Pastry was attempting the rite of consecration. Meanwhile, Josephine and Sheet discussed the ritual's granted powers. Remembering her own weak magical aptitude and incomplete ceremony with a bittersweet smile, Josephine deeply hoped her little brother would awaken far greater abilities. Elsewhere, Pastry sat bound and blindfolded, receiving only infrequent sips of bitter water. The priest whispered that magic isn't borrowed but dwells deep within the soul, unlocked only through enduring suffering. As the ordeal stretched past a day and a half, Casserole grew highly anxious. Although the priest assured him that a prolonged ritual indicated immense magical potential, the father's worry persisted. Yet, amidst the dark hardship, Pastry felt no fear. Instead, his mind excitedly raced with visions of baking apple-based desserts. He envisioned baking endless variations of golden pies and caramelized apples. Suddenly, a brilliant golden light enveloped him, sinking deep into his body. Opening his eyes, Pastry heard his father announce the ritual's success and the start of its final stage. The priest chanted sacred verses to formally affirm the boy's exceptional magical aptitude. As these words echoed, Pastry experienced vivid visions. Memories of his past life as a master confectioner, clarity regarding his reincarnation, and a complete understanding of the unique magic now flowing within him. Upon the consecration's conclusion, both Casserole and the priest stood in stunned reverence. The priest declared that the boy's power greatly surpassed that of an ordinary human. Casserole paid the priest with silver coins and prepared to depart. While expecting such a payment from a warlord, the greedy priest secretly felt the sum was insufficient to buy his silence. On their journey home, they stopped at a market. Pastry carefully inspected 2 apples, one heavy and full, the other bright and flawless. Driven by his obsession with perfect ingredients, he struggled to choose but eventually made his selection. Impressed by his keen eye, the merchant gifted him extra apples. Tasting this fruit for the first time since his rebirth, Pastry was overwhelmed by the flavor and quietly shared the moment with his father, jokingly suggesting they keep this luxury a secret. As he ate, he eagerly planned the steps to build his future kingdom of sweets. Meanwhile, the resentful priest glared at his coins, muttering threats to expose the visit. Elsewhere, ruthless bandits ravaged a nearby village, routinely burning and looting everything in sight. 3 weeks later, the villagers were relentlessly building defenses when dire news arrived. The bandits were moving much faster than anticipated, pushing the battle up by 2 full months. Casserole convened an emergency meeting with the village leaders and his trusted retainers, Cointreau and Glaciage. They decided to evacuate the smaller villages and concentrate their forces in the largest one. This strategy consolidated their defenses and lured the enemy into a trap backed by a 7-day food reserve. Pastry meticulously oversaw the preparations, knowing their small numbers would be fatal in a prolonged fight. He was assisted by his chosen aides, Marcarello and Luminito, the retainers' children and future pillars of the territory. Keeping his true strategy a secret, Pastry instructed everyone to gather stones. At sunset, the bandits finally appeared on the horizon, and warning bells echoed. After delivering a rousing speech to steel his men's resolve, Casserole launched a forward assault with his elite troops. He left Pastry in charge of the village's defense, explaining the final plan just before departing. The plan was to strike, withdraw, and lure the enemy toward the northern entrance. After he departed, Pastry ordered Marcarello to inform Cointreau at the Western Canal that flaming arrows would be their signal. Luminito coordinated with Lunsvage to ready the defenses the moment hooves were heard. Meanwhile, Pastry organized a small unit of children skilled with slings, urging them to remain calm and precise. Nearby, his sister Josephine comforted the frightened girls as tension thickened the air. Casserole launched his surprise attack, using magic to locate enemy positions and inflict losses before retreating. Enraged, the bandit leader pursued him recklessly. Flaming arrows suddenly lit the sky, signaling a rain of stones and arrows as the bandits fell into the trap. The strategy worked perfectly until the leader scaled the village wall, forcing the archers to halt to avoid friendly fire. The children bravely stood their ground, hurling stones. When the leader attacked them, Pastry stepped forward and absorbed the blow. In that instant, he unleashed his new magic, transferring his pain and damage to every attacker on the battlefield. The bandits collapsed in agony. Marcarello seized this opening, defeating the leader with a decisive strike. Pastry watched the aftermath in stunned silence amidst the littered broken weapons. News of the victory soon reached Agnes, who panicked upon hearing about Pastry's injured arm until she was reassured it was only a shallow wound. As prisoners were escorted away, Coella questioned their fate, suggesting they be sent away to restore regional order. Casserole, however, demanded fair compensation for the damages. The conflict concluded with a celebration honoring the brave defenders. For their unwavering loyalty, Marcarello and Luminito were rewarded with swords and sacks of barley. Marcarello returned home proudly to his mother's tears of joy. Pastry made it clear that these companions were the foundation of their territory's future. Afterward, everyone gathered at Luminito's home, where her grandfather welcomed them warmly, impressed by her mature confidence. The villagers celebrated around tables filled with food and drink, with the children sipping milk to join the festivities. The adults endlessly praised the youngsters, amazed that their simple trap had won the battle. Pastry, however, was lost in thought. His mind was already busy designing his first true recipe for apple pie. Admiring her new sword, Luminito accompanied Marcarello, who bravely inquired about the captured bandits locked in the main storehouse. Driven by curiosity and a sense of duty to their home, they decided to investigate, but were turned away by guards. Undeterred, Marcarello created a distraction by throwing stones at a rear shed, allowing them to slip inside. Meeting the bandit leader's terrifying gaze instantly shattered their confidence. Spotting Marcarello's sword, the leader calmly pretended to surrender and offered to teach him magic and swordsmanship, secretly knowing the blade was originally his. Tempted by the thought of becoming as strong as Pastry, Marcarello hesitated and stepped closer, completely ignoring Luminito's warnings. Suddenly, the leader broke free, slashed Luminito, and grabbed Marcarello hostage just as the guards rushed back inside. Using the boy as a human shield, the leader stole a horse and fled, abandoning his entire crew. Arriving moments later, Pastry checked Luminito's wound and quickly grasped the severity of the situation. He immediately pursued the fugitive, utilizing preset traps along the escape route. While running, a new ability awakened within Pastry. He realized he could replicate, adapt, and apply any magic he had previously witnessed. Back at the village, Casserole and Coelho were furious over the guard's negligence. Casserole wanted his chief retainer to ride with him, but she'd argued that the lord needed to stay behind to maintain the villagers' morale. Ultimately, Casserole advanced alone. Meanwhile, the fleeing horse triggered a hidden trap, allowing Pastry to catch up. A fierce duel ensued. Although stunned by the young boy's combat skills, the leader slowly overpowered Pastry with sheer physical strength. Terrified, Marcarello desperately cried out for Pastry to run away, but the boy firmly refused. Their bond mattered more than survival. When the bandit leader struck with full force, he shattered Pastry's sword, leaving him completely defenseless. Elsewhere, a retainer named Sheet desperately used detection magic, finding only the broken blade. Panicking and assuming the worst, he brought it to Casserole, casting a heavy dread over everyone. Suddenly, the door opened to reveal Pastry completely unharmed, sleeping peacefully in Agnes's arms. He had secretly returned with Marcarello, and his mother refused to let him out of her sight. Pressured by his father, Pastry confessed the truth. At the critical moment, he had copied Casserole's teleportation magic to escape the fatal blow. Recognizing the immense danger of such a rare gift, Casserole ordered absolute secrecy, warning his son never to use unfamiliar magic recklessly lest powerful forces exploit him as a weapon of war. The next day, Pastry found Marcarello in the kitchen, paralyzed by guilt over Luminito's injury. Reassuring his friend, Pastry brought him to visit her, carrying a freshly baked apple pie whose aroma instantly lifted everyone's spirits. While eating, Pastry gently taught Marcarello a lesson about resolve and responsibility. Suddenly, Luminito's father, Glossage, stormed in feigning fury, only to jokingly suggest that Marcarello make amends by marrying his daughter someday. Marcarello froze in shock, while Luminito voiced no objections. A month later, a new crisis struck. Casserole bluntly informed Pastry that they were bankrupt, rebuilding villages, digging wells, and securing supplies after the bandit attacks had entirely drained their reserves. Furthermore, a promised reward of 200 gold coins was lost due to an administrative error involving Marcarello and Luminito. Loans from nobles were universally denied, and family aid was impossible. 15 years earlier, Casserole and Agnes had eloped after their families rejected the marriage due to their land's extreme poverty, severing all ties. The territory was safe, but completely broke. Carrying an unprecedented weight, Pastry returned to his companions and confessed the truth about their financial collapse. Ever loyal, Marcarello urged him not to hide his burdens, insisting that shared problems often reveal unexpected solutions. To ease the heavy tension, Pastry checked on Luminito, who calmly shared that she was regaining her mobility despite occasional flashes of pain. Marcarello then suggested expanding their farmland to boost production, but harsh reality immediately shut the idea down. They lacked the time, workforce, and funds for such an expansion. Limonito suggested selling sweets in the city, but Pastry admitted he couldn't even afford basic ingredients. Lightening the mood, Marcarello joked that Pastry should teach magic for profit. Limonito laughed, warning that such careless ideas would literally get him burned. Sheet stepped in with a smile, noting their bickering proved their deep friendship. Growing serious, Limonito suggested his magic was the real solution and asked Pastry for a demonstration. He asked his friends to draw in the dirt. Marcarello sketched himself as a heroic mage, while Limonito drew a playful creature. With a precise motion, Pastry flawlessly copied the dirt sketches directly onto their hands. As Limonito stared in disbelief, Pastry explained that these images permanently bind to solid surfaces like wood, but fade from human skin after 3 days. Limonito wondered aloud if he could reverse the process by copying real faces or buildings into precise images. Pastry froze as a massive realization hit him: marriage portraits. He suddenly shouted that Limonito had discovered the golden solution, leaving her completely flustered. He rushed to find Casserole, who was already discussing the financial crisis with Sheet and Agnes, hesitantly considering asking their estranged in-laws for help. Bursting in, Pastry pitched his plan. Noting that Josephine was 13, he suggested arranging a marriage for her using teleportation magic to safely meet nobles. But the real profit lay in selling portrait services. Many magic-less noble families endured expensive journeys to royal banquets just to find suitable matches for their children. To prove his concept, Pastry copied Agnes's face onto a wooden board with mirror-like accuracy, leaving Casserole and Sheet completely speechless. Casserole estimated they could easily charge 5 to 10 gold coins per portrait. To test the market, Casserole visited the neighboring territory, using the bandit incident as an excuse to meet Countess Brioche. From her window, Brioche watched them arrive, assuming they intended to blame her for failing to suppress the outlaws. She was the eldest daughter of the former count, who had died in battle before the rightful heir also mysteriously perished. Following formal condolences, Brioche offered them tea. Pastry eagerly tried the region's famous biscuits, but was deeply disappointed, finding the tea equally lacking. Casserole kept his composure, praising her military and agricultural successes. When she questioned their land's sudden growth, Casserole honestly credited his 9-year-old son, leaving Brioche in disbelief. Pastry seized the moment, calmly exaggerating that hundreds of bandits had attacked them to apply pressure. As Brioche struggled to hide her shock, Pastry revealed that captured outlaws confessed to originating from her lands. He casually suggested transferring prisoners for questioning, a veiled threat of an official investigation. Brioche defended her reputation, boasting of past victories and claiming fugitives merely fled there. However, Pastry countered with Sheet's detailed report, exposing the brutal local raid that occurred before the bandits moved on. He then delivered the final blow. If she wasn't involved, who actually fought the bandits? And how could she explain the events? Driven by pride, Brioche demanded solid proof. Stepping in decisively, Casserole presented a sword bearing her family's crest, undeniably linking the bandits to her village. The color drained from Brioche's face as her previous claims crumbled. Sheet calmly explained that her failure to contain the threat caused direct damage to their lands, making compensation necessary. After signing the contract, she acknowledged the transformation of Casserole's territory and admitted she had underestimated the boy because of his age. Later, Brioche asked if her tea and biscuits had displeased Pastry. With perfect diplomacy, he replied that the sweets were simply too sugary and suggested offering a lighter option for balance. Before he could elaborate, Casserole jokingly interrupted to announce their departure. Apologizing for not bringing a formal gift, Pastry used his magic to instantly create a beautiful portrait of Brioche on fine cloth. Genuinely astonished, she thanked him with sincere admiration as the father and son departed with quiet pride. The scene then shifted to the royal capital estate of Elisbayo, where Pastry and Casserole attended the coming-of-age celebration for his grandson, Squale. Elisbayo relentlessly teased the young man, calling him a child despite the ceremony. Casserole ignored the mockery and expressed his honor at receiving the invitation, words that deeply pleased Elisbayo. especially coming from a respected war hero. Elisbio formally introduced Squale, announcing that he had graduated at the top of his class from the officers' academy. Flustered, Squale admitted his deep admiration for Casserole, who kindly encouraged the young man to relax and reminded him of his own high rank. As nobles swarmed Casserole, attention eventually shifted to Pastry. He introduced himself with refined confidence, leaving a strong impression on the crowd. Elisbio mentioned hearing that Pastry had reached maturity and asked if he possessed a magical blessing. Upon confirmation, Elisbio was thrilled, convinced their family was favored by the divine. When asked to demonstrate his magic, Pastry borrowed a piece of cloth and flawlessly copied the image of Petra onto it, drawing immediate gasps from the audience. Elisbio admired the portrait, revealing Squale's hidden feelings for the absent Petra. Pastry presented it as a joint gift from himself and Donikel, Petra's father. Casserole explained that constant border disputes made her travel far too dangerous, which prompted Donikel to request this formal introduction. Seeing Squale visibly captivated, Casserole and Pastry exchanged a knowing glance. Their initial plan was working perfectly. Pastry then invited Squale to Petra's upcoming coming-of-age ceremony, an offer the young man eagerly accepted. Observing this exchange, Elisbio realized the duo were acting as matchmakers and knew better than to underestimate the young boy. When Elisbio expressed concern over travel difficulties, Pastry offered Casserole's teleportation magic and privately revealed the core truth. Donikel sought this marital alliance to secure military backing and end his border conflicts. Relaxing, Elisbio promised to seriously consider the proposal, confirmed his attendance, and reaffirmed his trust in Casserole. Later at the party, Squale approached Pastry, asking to drop formalities and solidify their new friendship. When he asked about Petra's interests, Pastry mentioned her immense love for sweets, noting how his homemade biscuits had delighted her. Discussing the portrait, Squale passionately expressed his desire for a more emotional depiction of her. Returning home after the celebration, Casserole prioritized his people's comfort by personally covering their food and firewood expenses during the ongoing reconstruction, despite the potential hit to his authority. Sheet noted that such selfless lords were exceptionally rare. Soon after, letters arrived from both Elisbio and Donikel. Reading them, Casserole joyfully announced their great fortune. They would receive 20,000 silver coins for successfully arranging the marriage between Petra and Squale. The engagement would stay secret until Petra came of age. With a 30 gold coin advance for her protection, everyone understood the high risk of opposition. Secrecy was paramount. Pastry warned of church interference, to which Casserole calmly agreed, noting that official neutrality meant nothing for the right price. Their neutral stance granted them access to highly sensitive information, complicating the mission. While Casserole could teleport Petra, moving her alone was reckless. The real challenge was safely transporting her retinue and securing immediate protection in the capital. The head steward demanded a quiet, leak-free operation. Sheet warned against hiring capital guards, fearing infiltration by suspicious elements. Still, Casserole was determined, knowing the trust of two major powers was worth the risk. Pastry agreed. On transfer day, Casserole and Pastry welcomed Donikel, pretending Pastry was just a travel companion rather than the operations mastermind. Donikel credited the alliance's success to Casserole's magic. Inside the carriage, Petra thanked them warmly for the escort. Casserole praised her composure, and Pastry was delighted she had enjoyed his biscuits. After Petra shyly admitted she constantly thought about their taste, Pastry began explaining his recipes until her mother urged them to depart. Once settled, Pastry turned and greeted Petra's younger sister, Licorice. She responded coldly, but Petra gently urged her to be kinder given the risks everyone was taking. Licorice apologized, and Pastry took no offense. They reviewed their plan. Enter a local church in Donikel's territory under the guise of consecration. Then Casserole would teleport them to the capital where Petra would hide until the engagement announcement. Donikel warned of hostiles, but Casserole assured him they were prepared. Enemies watched from the shadows as the carriage moved. Upon reaching the church, an ambush erupted just as they disembarked with weapons drawn. Guards repelled the initial wave, but when a new assailant suddenly appeared, Pastry stepped forward, vowing to protect the ladies. Casserole joined the fray, quickly forcing the outmatched attackers to flee. Donikel sincerely thanked them both for saving his daughters. Licorice was badly shaken, but Pastry gently reassured her, taking her hand to guide her upstairs. Flustered, she realized that despite his youth, Pastry carried himself with incredible maturity and was the only person who never compared her to Petra. At the top of the stairs, Petra asked about the consecration. Pastry explained that Casserole would teleport them to continue the ritual in the capital. Relieved, the sisters followed him into the chamber, joined hands, and were instantly transported by Casserole's magic. Meanwhile, a disgraced man named Lahengo gathered mercenaries in a ruined house, claiming the mission would rebuild his fallen family. His real target was Squale's household. He explicitly revealed the objective: kidnap Petra for 10 gold coins, with failure being completely unacceptable. After he left, the mercenaries mocked his arrogant, transparent plan to tarnish Squale's reputation, stage a fake rescue, and force a marriage to elevate himself back into nobility. Back inside the capital church, Pastry noticed a heavy guard presence outside. Casserole explained they were Donikel's men. Pastry admired the impressive force, noting their own family could never assemble such numbers. Petra admitted her anxiety about the upcoming engagement. Pastry warmly reassured her, speaking highly of Squale and suggesting that meeting him would clarify her feelings. Smiling, Petra confessed the portrait had already left a wonderful impression. Donikel then arrived to announce that the priest was ready to begin. Sheet joined them shortly after, reporting a massive gathering of distant nobles at Elisebio's estate. Casserole plainly stated this marriage would unite their families into the kingdom's strongest noble house. He then tasked Pastry with escorting Licorice to the reception room while Petra underwent her ritual. Only then did Pastry notice her exhaustion. Sheet whispered for him to be gentle. Meanwhile, Lahengo sat celebrating his impending victory. Raising his wine, he smiled to himself, completely consumed by the thought of making Elisebio pay. Across the city, the guards smoothly escorted Petra to the church to complete her rites before returning with her father. Watching every step with restless eyes, Casserole and Sheet quietly concluded her part was successful. However, Casserole refused to relax. He knew hidden threats often struck precisely when people felt safe, especially in large crowds. Sheet was more concerned about Pastry being alone with an unmarried girl, but Casserole dismissed this. The maid's harsh tone and fierce declaration of duty unsettled Pastry. He asked her to calm down, but in the next heartbeat, his instincts screamed. Suddenly, the ground violently shook, and a strange sound rose as the stone beneath them began to split. The earth violently cracked open, instantly swallowing Pastry and Licorice. Carla screamed and bolted for help. Arriving immediately, Casserole recognized the bottomless pit wasn't a natural collapse, but a mage's creation. He ordered Sheet to inform Donikel at once before diving in without hesitation. Below, Pastry slowly regained consciousness amidst pain and dust, realizing he and Licorice were bound. A mercenary leader approached to explain, but Pastry calmly cut him off. The leader offered to loosen his restraints for good behavior. Pastry deduced that since his own family lacked ransom wealth, Licorice was the true target. The leader left a guard, warning that any reckless movement meant death. Pastry silently vowed to ensure Licorice's survival at all costs. When she awoke, he calmly explained everything, his steady voice soothing her panic and earning her complete trust in the darkness. Pastry, having already identified the enemy mage as the real threat, questioned the guard with calculated innocence. The guard coldly replied that only Licorice was needed. Pastry was expendable. Unflinching, Pastry realized he still needed to determine their location, falsely claiming his noble father could pay a massive 200 gold ransom. Seeing greed flicker in the guard's eyes, he deduced they were in the ruins of an estate that fell a decade ago. Recalling potential threats from their planning, the name Lahengo surfaced. Acting instantly, he magically copied this intelligence onto a cloth strip and used teleportation magic to send it to the surface. Acknowledging the political weight, Casserole still insisted they could act if they identified the kidnapper. Still trembling, suddenly, a flash of light materialized a cloth strip before them. Reading it, Casserole discovered the truth. The children were held at Lahengo's hideout. He immediately ordered Sheet to gather forces from Elisebio while he recruited volunteers outside the church. Below ground, the situation rapidly escalated. The furious mercenary leader stormed in, realizing they had disastrously kidnapped Licorice instead of their true target, Petra. The leader spat that the job was ruined since the engagement announcement was already happening above. Knowing the mercenaries would now try to erase the witnesses, Pastry fearlessly stepped in front of Licorice, grabbing a sword to become her shield. He struck down one attacker before facing the leader, whose expression tightened at the boy's speed, and demanded the leader's surrender. When the leader mocked him, Pastry confidently declared checkmate. Regretting his underestimation of the child, the leader panicked as the estate filled with chaos from Casserole's breaching forces. Pastry stalled the leader long enough for help to arrive. When Casserole and Glacéage reached them, servants rushed to free Licorice. Father and son cornered the criminal together, but the leader used magic to open an escape route. Casserole warned Pastry not to pursue blindly. With the immediate danger past, Casserole finally exhaled in relief. Servants sent by Elisbio and Donikel arrived to confirm Licorice's safety. As she was escorted back to her father, Pastry gave her a small, comforting wave before they moved to secure the remaining criminals. When a young noble inquired about the mastermind, Casserole revealed it was Lehengo, a man caught secretly fleeing a war 20 years prior. His family had lost their noble title under suspicion of enemy collaboration. Soon, a report arrived stating that Elisbio was waiting at the estate for an update. While Casserole and Pastry left the formal explanations to others, one major problem remained. The mercenary leader could still vanish. With the estate completely surrounded, how could he escape unnoticed? Returning to the room, Pastry addressed the seemingly empty space directly. The leader, grinning, revealed himself and formally introduced himself as Strudel, admitting he had abandoned his family name long ago. He praised Pastry for seeing through his clever trick to hide and slip away once everyone relaxed. Preparing to fight, Pastry insisted on a one-on-one duel. Laughing at the child's audacity, Strudel accepted. He attacked. As Casserole watched in tense fear, Pastry flawlessly parried. In one precise motion, Strudel's sword snapped. Casserole seized the mercenary as he collapsed. A month later, the official engagement ceremony for Squale and Petra took place inside the royal castle. The happy couple greeted dignitaries with bright smiles. Whether the announcement was meant to be public or private, the overwhelming grandeur of the event left both Casserole and Pastry completely stunned. Elisbio approached to greet them, thanking them for resolving the crisis and specifically praising Pastry for saving Licorice's life. Pastry responded modestly, claiming he merely fulfilled his duty and anyone would have done the same. Pastry then tried mentioning suspicious details regarding the kidnapping, hinting that a third party had leaked false information about Petra. Elisbio immediately ordered him to stop. Playing the innocent child, Pastry received a quiet but stern warning from Casserole. Unwilling to retreat easily, Pastry used careful words to convince Elisbio to support their territory's expansion plans. Suddenly, Donikel arrived. After thanking Pastry for saving his daughter and confirming the boy's purification rite was complete, he unexpectedly offered Licorice's hand in marriage. Licorice accepted. Pastry and Casserole were stunned by the weight of Donikel's noble status, but the offer stood, and the engagement was announced. When Licorice thanked Pastry again, her gentle charm caught him entirely off guard as a toast was raised to survival and new bonds. After the ceremony, Pastry stood alone watching the sunset until Licorice joined him, offering homemade biscuits as thanks. Though they tasted slightly salty, he smiled and called them delicious, lighting up her face. Pastry promised to protect her smile forever, feeling deep in his heart that with Licorice by his side, his ancient dream of creating a true land of sweets might finally become a reality. Later, back home, Casserole told Agnes to calm down and listen carefully. Assuming he had bought something expensive, she insisted she wouldn't be angry until Casserole surprised her, revealing that a new girl was entering their lives. Agnes froze. Casserole hurriedly explained the situation wasn't intentional. Demanding details, she learned the girl was beautiful, respectable, and a twin. Agnes bristled. Casserole admitted he should have consulted her first, but noted that Pastry also agreed the girl was suitable. Suddenly, Agnes realized the truth. This wasn't about her husband taking another wife, but an engagement for their son. When Pastry asked how she felt, Casserole said she needed time to process the news. Meanwhile, a messenger brought Brioche news threatening to upend her political calculations. Casserole's heir was engaged to Donikel's fourth daughter, Licorice. Surprised, Brioche immediately recalled the recent kidnapping that had shaken noble society. The messenger suggested the engagement merely proved Licorice's purity after the incident, expecting Donikel to dissolve it once public attention faded. Brioche calmly disagreed. She pointed out that their land showed massive growth potential, making this a calculated long-term investment rather than mere symbolism. She knew such rapid, systematic improvement was no coincidence. Brioche strongly suspected this strategic brilliance was directly connected to the silver-haired boy, Pastry. The messenger objected, noting the boy was only 9 years old. Brioche reminded him that this same child flawlessly calculated and led the bandit compensation negotiations, securing highly favorable terms step by step. Unsettled by her own conclusion, she realized Donikel had recognized Pastry's immense value long before she did. Meanwhile, crates of requested supplies arrived from Elise Bio, who had supported the engagement process. Marcarello and Luminito were incredibly curious. When Luminito noticed black acacia saplings inside, she joked about baking an acacia pie, making Pastry laugh. He explained that these fast-growing trees were for beekeeping, as honey is essential for sweets. Elsewhere, Sheet calculated the year's total profits from textiles, wheat, and aid, announcing a final sum of 4 gold coins. Visibly relaxing, Casserole reflected on 20 years of struggle, acknowledging their hard work was finally paying off. Sheet emphasized Pastry's crucial role in this recovery. Sheet then delivered 2 reports. Choosing the good news first, Casserole learned they had received over 40 settlement requests, mostly from refugees. Knowing this new labor would stabilize their growing territory, Casserole felt reassured, especially since 5 new servants hired after Licorice's kidnapping were currently training under Glassage. However, the bad news was that Pastry had started a disruptive new project. Investigating personally, Casserole found Pastry using earth-moving magic copied from Strudel to easily carve a massive crater into the ground. As his friends stared in total shock, Pastry happily announced he was building their new water reservoir. To form a complete stabilization system, saplings would collect rainwater around the reservoir. Genuinely excited, Pastry imagined his magic building a land of sweets. Suddenly, Marcarello and Luminito told him to look up. Seeing Casserole and Sheet watching, his confidence collapsed. Casserole furiously struck the children without restraint, making it clear that enthusiasm doesn't grant authority. Meanwhile, Brioche remained uneasy over their neighbors' rapidly shifting alliances. She bitterly admitted she might have copied Donikel if she had a daughter. What truly angered her was that Elise Bio and Donikel acted without consulting her. Back in the villages, change was visible as irrigation channels spread. Farmers whispered in awe that Pastry had created 3 water ponds in under a month. Inspecting the work, Pastry heard from Cointreau that the saplings were planted and everything was proceeding smoothly. They eagerly discussed future honey production. Josephine then arrived with an urgent letter, teasing it was from his fiancée. Instead, it was an invitation from Brioche to a tea gathering. Sensing hidden intent, Pastry immediately disliked it. Elsewhere, Sheet guided a new worker, Nicolo, who was shocked by the bustling activity instead of the countryside peace he expected. Sheet blamed Pastry. Arriving, Pastry plainly stated everything operated under his father's authority. When Sheet asked who built the unauthorized reservoir, Pastry calmly claimed he did it on his father's behalf as the future lord. Sheet advised Nicolo to direct all complaints to the boy. Suddenly, an important guest arrived, Licorice, stating she was eager to see Pastry again. She clarified this wasn't a short visit. She was staying. Stunned, Pastry knew a move like this carried far deeper political reasons. Down by the water, Marcarello and his friends skipped stones when Luminito arrived, announcing that Pastry's fiancée had moved in. Marcarello mentioned his father already knew, while Luminito gossiped about her being slightly older, attractive, and highly influential. Meanwhile, Pastry quietly showed Licorice's kitchen, calling it the workshop he had dreamed of his entire life. Back at his castle, Donikel asked his attendant if sending Licorice away was truly wise, feeling an unseen pressure as if someone were manipulating events. When the attendant asked if he suspected Brioche, Donikel agreed, believing her ambitions targeted his future. He knew Licorice was smart enough to recognize their ally's value, and the recent tea invitation confirmed his suspicions. He admitted sending Licorice to stand beside Pastry to block Brioche's advances. Standing at the kitchen entrance, Licorice's eyes widened. She honestly admitted she had never seen such a massive kitchen. Curious, she asked Pastry what he was doing. He calmly explained he was preparing sample gifts for the upcoming tea party. When she asked if he was baking biscuits, Pastry smiled, promising something completely different as he mixed sugar and water in a pan. Revealing it was hard candy, he carefully sculpted it into flowers and animals. While Licorice was deeply impressed by the beautiful treats, Pastry scolded Marcarello and Luminito for spying, playfully declaring he would give their share of the treats to his father and Sheet instead. Meanwhile, Sheet debated if Nicolo was suited to be Pastry's personal guard. Casserole noted that Brioche's tea parties often functioned as matchmaking grounds for young southern nobles, advising caution. Sheet agreed she was dangerous to deal with. Though Casserole trusted his son's capabilities, he worried more about Licorice. The tea party's venue was overwhelmingly luxurious. Nicolo was stunned, claiming it rivaled the royal castle, while Kaela noted it was a premier southern fortress. Pastry was calculating the chandelier's value until Kaela reminded him to focus on escorting Licorice. Refocusing, he spotted the portrait he had magically drawn of Brioche prominently displayed, feeling the placement was highly intentional. An attendant welcomed them. Pastry seized the moment to introduce Licorice as his fiancée, noting her unfamiliarity with southern gatherings. Soon after, Koten formally announced their arrival to the guests. Pastry distributed his hard candy as greeting gifts, earning high praise from the nobles. Koten declared the sudden burst of sweetness perfect with tea. Pastry then proposed distributing these candies as complimentary gifts via merchants, arguing that applying heavy sugar taxes to such tiny quantities only harmed trade. Intrigued, Brioche asked Koten to look after Licorice while she invited Pastry to speak privately. When Pastry admitted her large guard detail made him uneasy, Brioche explained it was unavoidable for her status, noting that if he were truly a threat, she would need far more men since standard guards are useless against mages anyway. Offering her the candy, Pastry revealed it was handcrafted from just water, sugar, and honey. He then shared his ambitious 3-year vision to produce these ingredients on their own land. Initially skeptical, Brioche soon saw the immense potential and agreed to support him through her southern trade routes and ports, eager to secure her place in his future empire. Elsewhere, Koten told Licorice that Pastry's rising popularity might attract unwanted admiration from other women. Unsettled by this thought, she quietly slipped out of the hall. Later, Pastry found her in the garden, reassuring her that Brioche merely saw him as a child. Licorice tearfully confessed her fear of losing him, comparing her quiet, reserved nature to the confident sociability of Petra. Pastry gently promised he loved her exactly as she was and asked for her trust. Using teleportation magic, he vanished and instantly returned with a special candied apple. He explained he made this love apple specifically for her, pouring all his feelings into it. Tasting the sweet treat, warmth filled her chest, bringing joyful tears to her eyes. As Pastry promised to fill her life with happiness and leaned in to kiss her, the romantic moment was abruptly ruined by Nicolo and Kaela, with Nicolo laughing that they had watched the entire thing. Pastry laughed and threatened to double Nicolo's workload. Bathed in warm afternoon light back at their manor, Agnes rushed forward the second she saw Pastry, embracing him so tightly it bordered on suffocation, as if she had counted every second until his return. Casserole praised his son for completing his first diplomatic mission successfully, then joked that Agnes should loosen her grip before she crushed him with joy. When Licorice loudly announced her return as well, a smiling Agnes mentioned that Pastry had spent the afternoon deeply absorbed in a secret project, playfully asking if it involved her. Her interest instantly sparked. Pastry eventually reappeared looking visibly drained, having endured a meticulous 2-hour interrogation from his mother. Agnes praised his endurance and handed him a cup of sweet tea. Noticing scattered wrapping papers across the table, Pastry asked about them. Agnes explained they were leftovers from wrapping the hard candies, but suddenly froze upon noticing the printed image, Pastry standing beside Brioche. When she questioned why he used that specific image, Pastry laughed it off, calling it a humorous prank to tie her image to his relationship with Licorice. Far away, Brioche glared furiously at the candy wrapped in her own portrait. An attendant urged restraint, but she could not accept that Pastry was distributing sweets to nobles using her face. Elsewhere, a servant informed Donikel of sudden military movements linked to Luderut. The signs were clear. Realizing that the upcoming alliance with Elisbio would militarily strengthen his enemies, Luderut had decided to strike early before their combined forces could fully form. Hearing the enemy army numbered 30,000, Donikel realized they were entirely unprepared for such a massive force and immediately dispatched a messenger to request military support from Elisbio. Back in their village, Pastry proudly calculated his candy and portrait earnings at 384 gold coins, keeping the silver and 4 gold coins for himself. Sheet was stunned by the child's massive profits. Pastry simply called it payment for his confectionery work, and Sheet noted that Casserole couldn't complain since these efforts directly enriched their territory. Outlining his next goal, Pastry wanted a merchant to acquire 100 goats. When Sheet recalled the initial number was 80, Pastry explained his tactic of negotiating down to secure a better deal, while also requesting 3 donkeys. Sheet joked the merchant might be crushed by these demands, but Pastry cheerfully noted goat milk and cheese were perfect for sweets. Sheet recalled past failures raising goats because they ate everything, making control impossible on barren land. Pastry countered that the land was fertile now and offered him a taste of something sweet extracted from sorghum. Shocked by the flavor, Sheet listened as Pastry revealed his first attempt at making sugar, planning to refine the process and make their land famous for sweets. Nearby, Licorice approached Pastry and his friends working on a wooden press for the sorghum. When Marcarello complained he couldn't reach the handle, Limonito climbed onto his back. Despite Pastry's warning, their combined weight snapped the press, sending them tumbling. Rushing to check on them, Pastry found them laughing. Realizing the design needed stronger materials, he wondered about using iron. Licorice cautiously suggested a dual-handled iron design she had seen at her father's estate. Pastry loved the idea and sincerely thanked her. While searching, he ran into Casserole, freshly returned from the capital. Pastry asked about Elisbio and Squale, but Sheet and Casserole delivered grim news instead. War had broken out between Donikel and Luderut. Meanwhile, at the enemy camp, a knight reported to Luderut that no reinforcements from Elisbio had arrived to assist Donikel. The commander expected this. Donikel had likely requested Elisbio's aid after hearing false rumors of a massive army, but nothing materialized. Realizing Luderut only possessed 10,000 troops, Donikel's pride would force him to fight alone. The commander declared his intent to completely erase Donikel. Informed that Donikel's daughter and her fiancé were also present, he smiled darkly and asked if the boy was Elisbio's grandson. Back in the kitchen, Pastry cleaned quietly. Licorice entered, noticing his distant expression. He brushed it off, but she openly discussed war rumors from her homeland, calling conflict foolish. She suggested people should instead focus on creating and sharing beautiful things like sweets to bring smiles. Pastry agreed, excitedly announcing the goats would arrive today so he could make a rich goat milk cheesecake, which Licorice eagerly wanted to try. Then came a shock. The goats were gone. A nervous merchant explained another noble had intervened and bought them. She called it thinly veiled theft. Under pressure, the merchant admitted selling them to Lunsvage. Pastry remembered this noble's reputation for targeting new families, while Sheet noted the difficulty of filing complaints without strong alliances. Casserole suspected the war's influence. Exploding in anger, Pastry swore revenge, but Casserole firmly stopped him. He explained that Lunsvage legally needed frontline supplies, leaving Pastry to feel the loss deeply. While Casserole tried to comfort him, Sheet suddenly suggested a solution. Joining the supply corps would grant them priority access to goods. Understanding instantly, Casserole agreed they had strong political reasons to publicly support Donikel. Pastry declared he would reclaim his goats at any cost. Soon after, Pastry, Casserole, Nicolo, and Glaciage joined the supply unit alongside 8 village infantrymen. Marcarello wanted to go, but Limonito stopped him from being a burden, and Cointreau reminded them their duty was protecting the estate. Elsewhere, Squale openly gazed at Petra's portrait. She teased him for staring at a picture when she stood right before him, to which he sincerely replied that her beauty required mental preparation. Donikel arrived, amused by Squale's composure. When a servant reported that Ludorut's 10,000 troops were advancing, Donikel realized the initial report of 30,000 was entirely false. Confident in his position, he assigned Squale to the front line. Petra protested, but her father stood firm. Squale thanked him for his first campaign and reassured Petra not to worry. At the enemy war camp, reports arrived one after another. The vanguard had reached the border, soldiers were growing tired, and Donikel's forces were steadily increasing, creating pressure that could no longer be ignored. Yet, Ludorut showed no concern for exhaustion or numbers. His gaze went far beyond the immediate battlefield. With a calm, deliberate voice, he revealed his true objective. He did not seek a simple military victory, but a political fracture deep enough to shatter alliances at their very foundation. Near the border, Squale advanced with his unit, still struggling to grasp how quickly his very first campaign had arrived. As the heavy weight of command finally settled in, one undeniable truth became clear. This march had nothing to do with glory or reputation. His only priority was Petra's safety. A day earlier, Pastry and Casserole had visited Donikel to offer their assistance. Donikel sincerely thanked them, though Casserole quickly had to silence Pastry when the boy blurted out a complaint about his stolen goats to keep the meeting on track. Once the discussion settled, Casserole inquired about the war's progress. Donikel noted that the situation looked favorable and asked for Casserole's opinion on an upcoming offensive launched from their forward fortress. Studying the map carefully, Casserole felt an uneasy sensation creep in. The formation made too much sense, as if the logic itself had been engineered. Casserole traced a hypothetical strike point on the map, causing Donikel to turn completely pale. That exact position was where Squale's unit was heading. Donikel entrusted a detachment to their command. Pastry and Casserole departed at once, racing against time to stop the trap from sealing shut. On the battlefield, Squale's unit moved to engage after receiving reports of an enemy presence, but found nothing. Suddenly, a crushing strike hit them from behind like a hand emerging from the dark as enemy forces slammed into his men. Desperately maintaining his composure, Squale demanded clear reports and ordered a tactical retreat into the forest. However, just as the path seemed open, another unit blocked their way ahead. In that terrifying instant, Squale realized this was no chance encounter. It was a deliberate, inescapable encirclement. As they advanced to the rescue, Glossage noticed that Donikel's assigned detachment was lagging behind. Casserole pushed forward with Pastry and Glossage at full speed. Inside the deadly trap, Squale considered forcing a desperate breakthrough, but panic was already spreading among his heavily outnumbered soldiers. Suddenly, arrows rained down from the trees, felling enemy troops one after another. Squale froze for a heartbeat before realizing the truth. Casserole arrived soon after, and together they systematically drove the enemy back. Watching in disbelief, Squale listened as Pastry simply explained they had come to keep him alive and deny the enemy their prize. Squale humbly admitted he could never repay their timely arrival, just as all hope was fading. When the battlefield report reached Ludorut, his composure finally cracked. Donikel was no longer alone. Casserole and his forces had entered the fray. As his advisors frantically whispered about the consequences, potential reinforcements from Elise Bio, escalating conflict, and the need for a strategic withdrawal, Ludorut listened in dead silence. His grand plan had failed. Back in their territory, profound relief washed over Donikel when he saw Squale unharmed. He deeply apologized for his severe misjudgment and thanked Pastry and Casserole for saving the young man. Despite the praise, Squale felt entirely undeserving, heavy with exhaustion. When a visibly relieved Petra arrived, Squale assured her his wounds were minor and promised to talk later. Casserole recognized the troubling signs. A brutal first battle often leaves scars far deeper than physical flesh. Noticing the dark shift in Squale's demeanor, Petra wondered how to ease his burden. Remembering how his son had once comforted Marcarello after a failed skirmish, Casserole suggested Pastry do the same now. Petra eagerly agreed, pleading with Pastry to help him smile again. Recalling his recent conversation with Licorice about how sweets create happiness, an idea instantly sparked in Pastry's mind. and he quickly gathered his ingredients. While Donikel hosted a loud victory celebration, Pastry remained hyper-focused in the kitchen. Meanwhile, Squale sat listening to the voices outside, praise, ambition, and arrogant complaints that the battle ended too soon. Casserole gently advised him not to carry the weight of their careless words. Squale tragically confessed his true fear, not of injury, but of facing Elise Bio and carrying the guilt of the men who had died under his command. Then, Pastry arrived, filling the room with a warm, inviting aroma. Surprised, Squale looked up as the boy offered him a slice of a beautiful dessert. Noticing its caramelized, reddish-brown surface, Squale asked its name. Tart Tatin, Pastry proudly announced, made with bonum fruit. As Squale took his first bite, pure disbelief crossed his face. The flavor was overwhelmingly rich, perfectly balanced, and vibrantly alive. Pastry explained how the heat beautifully intensified both the sweetness and acidity of the fruit. Pastry added that feeling guilt over lost lives was the true mark of a leader. When Petra told Squale how proud she was, the young man finally felt the tight knot in his chest loosen for the first time since the battle. Nodding quietly, he silently vowed to grow stronger and ensure his mistakes were never meaningless. Afterward, Squale asked for another slice of the tart tatin and invited Petra to sit with him in the garden, sharing the sweet treat quietly beneath the open sky. Observing them, Donikel noticed that Squale's spirits had lifted, even if only slightly. Beside him, Casserole remarked that overcoming the deep shock of a first military campaign is a profoundly personal journey that can never be rushed or forced. Grateful, Donikel thanked Pastry for guiding Squale through such a fragile moment and asked if there was anything the boy desired in return. Falling silent, Pastry turned various possibilities over in his mind until he realized the one thing he truly wanted. Not long after, Pastry arrived back in their city carrying so many items that Marcarello and Luminito stared in utter disbelief. Explaining these were gifts of gratitude from Donikel, he handed Licorice a letter from her father. He then told Sheet that Casserole had stayed behind to finalize highly beneficial negotiations. Pastry revealed his father had been absolutely furious after Lunsvage stole their goats under the guise of acquiring war supplies. With a sharp edge in his voice, Pastry declared that Lunsvage had no right to complain if they retaliated by buying up all of his livestock and raw materials. Sheet froze, barely believing the situation had escalated so drastically, but Pastry insisted their massive contributions to the campaign gave them every right to exploit this opportunity. Right at that moment, Casserole arrived, announcing the negotiations were complete and asking Pastry to help transport the goods. Casserole clarified that the horses they acquired were originally reserved for Lunsvage, but he had aggressively insisted on purchasing them himself. Later, Pastry excitedly demonstrated his newly built juice press to Marcarello and Luminito, showing them how rotating the mechanism crushed the fruit to perfectly extract its essence. Soon after, Agnes and Josephine called him over, informing the boy that he would be traveling with Casserole to the royal capital. At the same time, Licorice mentioned that her father had invited her and Petra to spend the summer in the royal capital. Hesitating, she worried about what she should wear and asked for their opinions. Agnes explained this was exactly why they had all gathered. Their current clothes were entirely unsuitable for a noble lady. Josephine added that no local tailor could produce a dress worthy of such a grand occasion, so they wanted Pastry to order a custom gown for Licorice while in the capital. Flustered but understanding, Pastry finally agreed. In the capital, Pastry delivered Licorice's measurements to a master tailor, provided her portrait, and requested a custom dress that would perfectly reflect her true self. Back home, Pastry quickly immersed himself in a new baking project. When Licorice asked what he was making, he explained it was a treat he had been waiting a long time to create. The aroma alone was irresistible. Revealing it was a cheesecake made from their hard-won goat's milk, Licorice was amazed once again by how his sweets never failed to exceed her expectations. Not long after, Pastry began preparing yet another dessert. With curiosity sparkling in her eyes, Licorice asked what it was this time. Leaning closer, he softly whispered the name into her ear. Her excitement instantly doubled, and she could barely wait for a taste. Pastry simply smiled gently, playfully warning her not to raise her expectations too high.